I gotta figure out a place to put these. Let's see if we can put them right here. Shaney, where are you? Shane? Thank you, baby. So sweet. Hi, everybody. So many faces here, and I only paid like 20 of you to be here, so that's pretty awesome. So my name is Susie, and first of all, I want to say thank you so much to the Livery, to Leanne, who has just been a beacon of positivity and amazingness in my life for 4 years. I mean, she's just been so terrific. And when this opportunity came up, she knew my dream a while ago. And when this opportunity came up, we both were like, we're there, we're together, we're gonna do this. And to artisans, thank you so much. Where is Marcy? Is Marcy here?
Marcy? It's Catherine's birthday.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's her daughter's birthday.
Oh, okay, okay. So, and Amy, did Amy come?
Amy Whitmer.
Yep, Amy Whitmer. And Tina Marie, where is she? It's hard to see because these lights are like right in my face. So if I'm like, no. How's that? Is that okay? Okay. So this adventure of mine started about 22 years ago when I became the mom of a disabled baby boy. And that's going to be the first chapter that I talk about. But first of all, I want to ask one question of everybody here. How many people have been divorced? And keep your hands up. How many people have, Jim, get your hand up. How many people have lost a loved one? Thank you very much. How many people have lost a job? Been disappointed in life? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So when you take a look around, everybody who is, you can put your hands down now. The things that I want to talk about today are things that all of us experience at some point in our life. There's no question about that. Death is something that we don't normalize in talking about in our society at all. And I'm not going to say that what I'm going to talk about tonight is easy, because it's not easy. These are difficult stories that I'm going to tell you. However, I bet everybody has a nugget of something that they can take away from the stories that I'm going to share with you. I think in a past life I was a pirate, because I swear a lot. I'm not going to swear. I'm going to try not to swear. I think I can think of one story where I know I'm going to drop a couple F-bombs. I'm going to say shit, because situations is one of my little themes that I like to talk about, because we all have these situations that we're in all the time. But I'm kind of more of a Urban Dictionary person as opposed to a Merriam-Webster type of a person. So as I'm talking tonight, I would love it if you could think about like themes. Situations versus situations. Survival versus surthrival. True north. Your superpower, because everybody in here has a superpower, even though they might not know it. You know, we've been through these situations, and sometimes we've gotten on the other side of them, and maybe we haven't processed it enough, but we've all been strong enough to get through really, really difficult times in our life. Judy? So, what I really would like it is, as you're going with me on these stories, you're able to sort of maybe take a nugget of information, draw a parallel to something that's happened in your life. I had little journals. If you don't have one, stand up and go grab it. Because this isn't just about me sitting up here telling stories. It's the journey that started 22 years ago was that I didn't have any resources when I found out how disabled my son was. And I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and the host, he said, well, why are you doing this now? Why are you doing this? And I said, because here I am 22 years later, and I want to be the person that I needed 22 years ago. That's really, really, really what I want to be. That's my true north now, is I'm at this place in my life where all of these things have happened, and it's just such a freaking waste if I don't do something with it and try to help somebody. So that's what brings me here today. And 3 to 1 is my website, and as I'm moving forward in my new career will be my brand name. And that is because I went from having 3 beautiful children down to having 1 left. My beautiful, my one right there. So if I point to her a lot, that's why, because she's my one. She's my one. And I'm gonna start tonight talking about chapter 3 first. And chapter 3, because I think of chapter 3 as like the end, and chapter 3 is the end of the person that I was 22 years ago. And sort of has shaped me into the person that I am now. And I like the person that I am now. And it's so weird, thinking about all these situations that have happened. And, I think in society we're sort of, taught that we shouldn't, be proud of ourselves or appreciate our strengths and things like that. And it's like what I came on the other side of all this is that I'm kind of a badass. It's true. It's true. Thank you. It's true. And I like saying that. And I'm proud to be able to say that, because this has been hard. It has been gut-wrenching. It has been, I have been stripped down to bare frickin' bones. And I'm proud. I'm proud of who I am. And I feel like I'm in that place now where I can actually really help people. I'm clear enough. I'm clear enough with who I am that I can help other people get clear enough with where they need to go and who they are. So you're probably wondering about this. So Lawson and I were going out to a conference in New Mexico about a month and a half ago for the National Speakers Association. And we're going out to this conference, and I am such an introvert. And I was paralyzed because I'm thinking, how am I going to go into this huge conference with all these public speakers? And they're fancy, and they're going out and they're doing $1 million talks and all sorts of stuff. And I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to possibly say? So I'm YouTubing, of course, like, what am I going to do? How do I connect with people? How do I do this? And this guy, I found him, and he works with startups in Portland, Oregon. And he got out there and he's telling his story, about how excited he was when he was a little kid, because he's an introvert. He would go to school, and he was so excited to get to school to play with his friend, Golden Walnut. And he's like, and I went to a Montessori school, and I'm thinking, God, that's a freaking weird name for a kid, Golden Walnut. But what he really was talking about is he couldn't wait to get to school because he had an actual golden walnut. And on this TEDx, this big golden walnut comes up behind him. That's how introverted he was. He had needed that golden walnut to be his little security animal. So I thought my beautiful motorcycle would be my golden walnut. And when I'm feeling anxious, I'm going to stand behind it, and I'm going to sit on it and lean on it, because this is my little comfort thing. This also is a humongous representation of how far I have come. And, when I got divorced, God knows how long ago, I can remember prior to that, my ex-husband, he was a state trooper. You'll never ride a motorcycle. I'll never let you ride a motorcycle, blah, blah, blah. So what is the first thing I want to do when I got divorced? But I had no money, so I couldn't take a rider's course. So I couldn't do anything. And then I actually met my amazing husband over there who had a Harley Davidson. How opportune is that? And I got tired of riding on the back. And after dance one night, Shani, you'll appreciate this, because I think you took the picture. One of the girls that we danced with, she had this beautiful motorcycle. And it might have actually been the same motorcycle that I have now. And I sat on it, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So it took me this long. And this is definitely a true representation of what makes me tick, what makes me happy, what gives me security and comfort. And I think I got to figure out a way to keep these flowers mounted on the back instead of my yoga mat. So I'm going to start with chapter 3. And, I wanted to, so another thing. Thinking of themes, I had a funny thing happen. I was walking through this talk in my head. Hey, how are you? Good. I'm really happy to be here. Are you? Yes, I am. Good. So I'm walking, and my husband and I are out doing yard work, and you know, after the snow melts, what's left? If you've got dogs, all the dog poop. All the dog poop. And I'm thinking, and I'm talking, and I'm thinking, I love themes. And I'm thinking, you know, silver lining a situation. But it's like, you know I do love Brene Brown, but it's a very Brene Brown kind of thing. And it seems kind of, it goes a little bit towards the toxic positivity thing. And it wasn't quite me. And as I'm thinking, and I'm scooping poop, and I'm throwing it in the woods, and I'm scooping poop, and I'm thinking, what am I gonna say? And I pick up the scoop, and there is a beautifully formed, tiny little sprout growing out of this turd on the scoop. And I'm like, that's it. It's the situations, it's the sprouts that come out of the good things that come out of something you think is just the most disgusting, gross thing and horrible thing in the world that's left on the lawn after the snow melts, and we're stuck with brown poop. So silver linings and silver sprouts, that kind of came to my head. That was a God moment. And I'm a big believer in God moments. I really do. I've had a lot of them in my life. So I'm taking a drink of water. It's either water or wine. What's it going to be? Water. Water for now. Keep my mind clear. Excuse me. So, are there times in your life that you wish you could go back and relive? Yeah? I have 4 things in my life that I wish I could go back and relive. And that would be the birth of my 3 children and the death of my son, which I know sounds very odd. But when my oldest daughter, Cameron, was about a year and a half, my ex-husband and I decided we wanted to have another baby. And we got pregnant pretty quick. And it was a pretty unremarkable pregnancy, with the exception of 2 things. At around the 6 or 7 month, I experienced an episode of what's called polyhydramnios, which is an excessive amount of amniotic fluid around the fetus, which spontaneously resolved, and nobody ever said anything like, oh my God, this is something you should be concerned about. So it never really popped up on my radar that anything was wrong. And the other thing was, when my little man was in my belly, he never kicked me or punched me or did anything like that. And you know, the only thing I had to go on was my daughter, and she was just nailing me all the time. It could be sweet, it could be spicy food, sweet food, it could be sound, it could be whatever, but she was always like this. And it didn't really, you know, I could always feel where he was. You know, the undulation, I could see, you know, his head and his butt, but there was just none of that vigor. And then childbirth was pretty unremarkable, 12 hours, no biggie. And, but when he was born, his APGARs were like wickedly low. 2 and 4. I mean, like not breathing. They could not get him going at all. You know, and a few minutes go by, and we gave him oxygen and rubbed him, and they finally got him going. And after that, everything was fine. So we went home, and it was really, really peaceful when we went home. And it was peaceful because when I went home with Cameron, a year and a half before, actually 2.5 at that point, just about, she had colic. She was up all the time. It was just, oh, Lord, and would only sleep, face down on my chest was the only place, and it was never when, in normal hours, and so it was very chaotic. But when Cray came home, he slept all the time. And everybody was like, oh God, he's just like such a good baby. He's such a good baby. He slept all the time. And when he was awake, he didn't fuss. He didn't, we could feed him, and he wouldn't latch on, so I had to bottle feed him. So at about the 6-week mark, went to our pediatrician for a regular checkup, and I said, Doug O'Mara, I don't know if everybody in here have Doug O'Mara, because he was everybody's pediatrician in this area for the longest time, in addition to his 15 kids. So, you know, I just said, you know, Doug, I just feel like something is a little bit off. And he said, well, you know, he does seem to be a tiny bit behind the curve. And, you know, when it came to Cameron, she hit every milestone with like laser precision. Everything was just by the book. So, you know, he said, yeah, let's just go up, let's get a CT scan. So a couple weeks later, we went up, and it was my ex-husband and my mother and myself, and we got to the pain-free clinic up at Chad, and it was the coolest, it's just the coolest place. They're so amazing. Everything is so geared towards the children. We had our own little pod, we had a nurse. You know, they basically hand us a pager, and they're like, you know, 30 minutes, we'll give you a buzz, go out, wander around, get breakfast, you know, everything's gonna be fine. So we went down, we had breakfast, you know, I'm looking, pager's not going off. Then we went to the gift shop, which, you know, Dartmouth Hitchcock, their gift shop is awesome. So, of course, we went up there, you know, more time goes by, went back down, got our refills on the coffee, and finally we're like, well, we're just gonna go back up. We're gonna go up and find out what's going on. So I can remember walking in and, you know, coming around to our pod, and there was just this little shift, just a tiny little shift in the energy. And I didn't really think much about it, but I was already a little bit alarmed because, you know, a CAT scan does not take an hour and a half. And ultimately, the radiologist came out, and the one thing I remember is that he wouldn't look me in the eye. You know, and I'm like, well, what? And he's like, no, I'm sorry, but you know, they decided to do an MRI instead of a CAT scan because he said if we had a CAT scan and it wasn't okay, I would have gone ahead and done the MRI, right? So I'm like, dude, you know, literally trying to, and I just said, you just have to freaking tell me, is he okay? And then he locked eyes and he said, he is not okay. Okay, but I'm not gonna tell you what's wrong. I'm like, oh, geez Louise. So in the days, you know, to follow, we went to our pediatrician, and at 8 weeks in time, his brain had already atrophied significantly. So, you know, here, it's just a nightmare. It was just an absolute nightmare. And I remember going home and, you know, we're getting more and more information, Googling microcephaly. Well, shit. You know, especially back then, the internet was not quite as refined as it is now. This is, you know, this is 2002. And all I remember seeing was, your baby's gonna die, and he's gonna be really uncomfortable while he's dying, and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, this is just awful. So it was every single day, a new something. We had an amazing doctor. We got connected with this doctor up at Dartmouth Hitchcock, and extraordinarily spiritual, gentle, brilliant man. Became a family friend. He would come over and have dinner, and he loved baseball, loved to talk about baseball, but we just wanted to talk about our baby, pretty much. And he just said, you know, this is where we really need to start talking about decisions, you know, the decisions that you have to make. But it didn't really resonate because, like, I'm just thinking, baby's gonna die and he's gonna be really uncomfortable. So what is the first thing I do? I quit my job, and then I just am at home, and it's just the death watch. You know, he's a disabled baby. He can do nothing. He can't sit up on his own. He can't speak. He can't, I mean, he's obviously not speaking at that age anyways, but, you know, it was just this horrible thing. And I just, you know, wake up and I'd get him, and then we'd just go sit on the couch and I'd watch, you know, Jerry Springer and all sorts of things, and just sit with my baby thinking about these horrible, horrible things that are gonna happen. And during that time frame, I had to go up to Dartmouth to see the doctor again. And I can remember, I'm sitting in the waiting room, and a woman and I thought it was a baby. It wasn't a baby. It was a younger teenage child with microcephaly as well, though. Very, very distinctive looking. had the same wheelchair as my son, and all I could see was the little top of this guy's head and the feet. And this wheelchair was piled with shit. Coats, blankets, bags, Dunkin' cup, it was just, and I don't know what it was about that. I went in, sat down with the pediatrician, just started crying. And he's like, what is wrong? And I told him, I just saw this, and I'm thinking, is that what our life is going to become? Just where is the dignity for that individual who was in that wheelchair? And, he was such a beautiful soul, and he just said, well, these are the conversations that I think it's important that we have now, because he knew who I was talking about. I don't know if that was his patient or not, but he knew who that child was. And he said, that parent, the template for all of the decisions that parent has made for that baby has been for the parent, and not necessarily in the best interest of what was right for that child, And wow. And the decisions that they were putting in front of us were like, these are life and death decisions. They really, really were life and death decisions. And at that moment in time, he said, basically, the decisions that person makes is in order to prevent their child from dying, because they're so afraid of what that's going to feel like when that happens. Not really thinking about what was in the best interest of that child. So that was my true north moment. We talk about true north. We talk about true north as an individual and how it guides us through our life. And my true north is this. This is my true north, actually. Now, at this point in my life, this is my true north. But I think that we can also take these difficult situations that we live through and have a true north in that particular situation as well. At that moment in time, comfort and dignity became the true north for every single decision that we made when it came to my son. When I say we, I say me and my ex-husband. And then that is the only nice thing I'm going to say about my ex-husband during this whole talk. I swear to God. And you're going to be with me, too, on that one for sure. But we were on the same page with that. So every single decision moving forward from that point on had the lens of comfort and dignity. And things got so much easier, because every single thing was about how we were going to make that short little life, however long it was going to be, the best that it could possibly be. We went down to, our doctor sent us down to Boston to one of the hospitals, I don't even remember at this point in time, to go see his mentor. And we got down there, and the doctor said, why are you here? Dr. Filiano sent you, and he's the best of the best. He knows more than I do, even though I mentored him. Well, I don't know. So I think I know why he did send us down there. We went down, and he did all of his tests and assessments and things like that. And we're thinking, I'm thinking for our son, Cray. So his name was Cray. I got to go back just for 1 second. Cray is kind of a funny story how he got that name. His name was actually Lawrence Craven Holdsworth V, which was a battle. I refused to name him that. But my ex-husband, we had to name him that. We had to name him that, because if we didn't, it was a bad omen. And I'm thinking, really? I mean, honestly, I went that route and that happened anyways. That kind of sucked, but Cray, that's what we called him. So we went down, and we're thinking we would have a child that had a diminished capacity. He would be delayed in his development. I think that was our ultimate hope. We're thinking, well, when will he crawl? When would he walk? When would he talk? And this doctor, I can remember him sitting there, and he was not quite as smooth as our doctor. Our doctor wasn't smooth, he was just gentle. He basically just said, I'm sorry that you've gotten this impression, but your son will do absolutely nothing at any point in his life. He will not walk, he will not crawl, he will not talk, he will not feed himself, he will not be able to sit up by himself, he will not be able to do anything. And from this point on, he's going to deteriorate, steadily. God dang, it was tough. That was really, really tough. But the lens, dignity and comfort, dignity and comfort. So I tried to stay home, didn't work, went back to work. Things, once we had that template, that true north of how we were going to do, life actually lightened up. It lightened up considerably for us. We started to live again. We went out. Another issue that really just stumped me was a feeding tube. Oh God, I will never have a feeding tube for my son. I don't know why. I don't know why I thought that. But like this, at this one, he kept having pneumonia, more and more pneumonia, over and over again. And we went to see this other doctor, and boy, she was a pistol and a half. She said, all right, you don't want to have a feeding tube. We have options here. We have got options. And I'm thinking, cool, we've got options. We can continue to feed him the way we are, and he will continue to aspirate and continue to have pneumonia after pneumonia after pneumonia. You can put in a feeding tube, or we can keep him comfortable. I'm thinking, keep him comfortable? Well, that sounds good. Well, what does that mean? Tell me more about that. Well, basically, we can let him starve to death. I'm like, that's an option? I mean, really? And she was dead serious. She was not being glib. She was not being judgmental. She was giving me the opportunity to make an informed decision on what we were going to do for our son. And that was an actual option. Nope, okay. So I became a feeding tube expert. No question about that. I could put him in, I could take him out, I could clean him, I could get him unstuck, I could do everything. So, that's one of those, I think prior to thinking of who I was before, I was so rigid in how I used to think about things, just rigid, rigid, rigid. And with all of this new life and adjusting, I became so much more fluid in my decision-making process, and things didn't seem so black and white in the world anymore. They were much more gray. They became so much more gray. And again, the true north, when it came to him, it was very easy to make the decisions we needed to make. So ultimately, pneumonia after pneumonia after pneumonia, hospitalization after hospitalization, which was so disruptive, because we decided a year before he passed away, no more. We're not doing this anymore. We are not going to. We had all the equipment at home. I could do absolutely anything except for set an IV. I mean, I could do anything to take care of this child. We had nurses in our house 8 hours a day. That's how disabled he was. Everything, every single service that we could get, we had. We were so fortunate. So pneumonia after pneumonia. And in December, I was working up in Mount Sunapee, and he was sick. He had another bout of pneumonia. He came home from work. We didn't get alarmed anymore. We were so used to being able to treat him and keep him comfortable. And he always bounced back. So I got home from work. He was coughing a little bit more than usual. So I said, all right, well, let's just jump in the ambulance and go up. We were friends with the ambulance drivers at this point in time. So I got in the ambulance with Cray. My ex-husband waited for my mom to come and pick up the girls, and we went up to Dartmouth-Hitchcock. We met with our doctor. He did a chest x-ray and came out, and he said, well, yeah, obviously he's got pneumonia again, but this time he's got a pleural effusion. So he had not only the fluid on the inside of his lungs, but he had fluid between the outside of his lungs and his chest wall. And he said, well, we've got options, but you're not going to like them. We need to drain it off, if that's the route you want to go. If we do that, we have to put him under, which means we need to intubate him. And he will not be extubated, likely, for the rest of his life. Nope. Put that lens on. Comfort, dignity, comfort. Can you imagine that? Go home, keep him comfy. I think we were so kind of immune to it at this point in time that there was no big red flag going off in my head at all. So my ex-husband had driven up. Car seats were in my car back at home. So, we were being rebels. We got I got him in the front seat. We were in the front seat of the truck. Felt like we were breaking the law. And went home, and that's kind of funny, my ex-husband, right? I know some of you are really snickering, because you know. If you know, you know. So got him home. We were living in the back of the New London Inn at this moment in time, because we were building a house up in Wilmot, a handicap accessible house, because we really couldn't find one that was good enough for my boy. So it was a 2-story apartment in the back of the inn, and my ex-husband went across the street, got some Subway, because it's kind of late, we were hungry. And that night, God moment here, for the first time in Cray's life, I decided I was going to sleep with him. I'd never slept with him. I have no idea why. Probably because he slept all the time. He didn't need that nurturing when he was a little tiny baby, because he was always asleep. So I never did. I never even thought about it. And I thought, they had those metal spiral staircases that got up to the second floor. And I'm thinking, I don't want to do that. We're going to crash on the futon tonight. So he and I laid down on that futon, and my ex-husband went to bed and fell asleep watching Saving Private Ryan. And I woke up next morning at about 5:40 in the morning, and Saving Private Ryan was still on. It was like AMC or something, or TBS, where they have the same movie playing over and over and over again. And normally at that point in time, minute I get up, I go and I pee and I eat. Those are the 2 things that I used to do the minute that I woke up every single morning. That morning, I did not do that. That morning, I just propped myself up on my side, and Cray was breathing deep, and I'm rubbing his head. And I realized after a minute or 2, his breath was very deep. And it was slowing down, just little by little, slowing down, and it was slowing down, and then it just stopped. And his beautiful soul went to God. And his body was so broken, and this peace, it was so incredibly beautiful, and it was so incredibly peaceful. And I felt so thankful that I had been right with him. Think about it. If the night before I had taken him upstairs, and I woke up in the morning and I peed and I ate, so it might be, half an hour or so before I went upstairs, he would have been dead. And I wouldn't have known if he had cried out for me, if he had suffered, if he had been uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form. I felt as though it was just the most incredible gift that I think any parent can have, to be able to experience what I was able to experience. And I think back of the themes we're talking about. This was not a situation. This was a situation. At no point in time, and this is, I think, where people might get a little stuck. There was nothing tragic about this little boy's life. He was comfortable. He was so incredibly loved. And the people that had this awesome opportunity of being with him were forever changed. Forever changed. He did nothing but love. He couldn't talk. He couldn't say anything. He couldn't show you anything back. But when you sat with him and he pushed that warm, soft cheek up into you, you knew that he was right there and he was feeling nothing but love for you. And I think that was probably the most amazing gift as a parent. So when I say that if I could relive anything again, that would definitely be one of the things. So moving into chapter 2, that was the end of chapter 3. And what an amazing gift it was. So chapter 2 is a little more chaotic. It's a little harder for me to stay linear with that. And there's lots of sprouts that came from the shit in chapter 2 for sure. And they say that, challenging times bring out the best in people or the worst in people. And I think what happens in those situations is that we all have habits, right? We all have habits, or there's things that we do, we gravitate to. And I think when times are tough, we sometimes gravitate a little bit more to those habits as a means to deflect, numb, avoid. We could be working out too much. We could be working too much. We could be drinking too much. We could be doing. And I certainly was not exempt from this at all. I know in the weeks after Cray passed away, as much as I was so prepared for this, I had already prepared his whole funeral a year before he died. I was way prepared for this. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I had so much time to pre-grieve, But even then, English muffins, wine, and Ambien. That was my study diet for no question about it. But about 3 weeks. We'll say 3 weeks, maybe a month tops on that one. And then I realized, holy crap, I have these 2 beautiful daughters. At that point in time, Lawson was a year and a half. Cameron would have been, I think, 99, 8 and a half, yeah. So, put on my big girl panties, and I gotta mobilize, and I gotta start taking care of them. And my ex-husband, though, on the other hand, his habit was alcohol. And there, you have to give people leeway. They have to grieve in their own way. They have to get through their own stuff. Like I said, we were in the process of building a house, and his thing was, when we move into the new house, I am going to only drink 2 beers a day, and I'm going to be a better husband. I thought that the 2 of those were linked. They weren't. So the July after our son passed away, we moved into our home on top of a mountain. We had our horses, beautiful fields. Every single night, it was like somebody just dropped this veil of stars. It was so magical. Out at night, coyotes chirping from one side of the field to the other, back and forth, back and forth. You could hear the wind blowing through the tall grass. I mean, it was magical. And, things felt like they were getting better and stabilizing, coming out of that episode. But there was definitely, a couple red flags, the alcohol being the main one. The MO of my ex-husband was, he tried to stick to the 2 beer a day thing, but every single day he worked a 3 off, 6 on schedule, something like that. I can't remember now. But every day in the afternoon he would have to go get diesel for the tractor, or he'd have to go and get more horse supplies, or fresh frozen for the dogs. He was a canine handler. And that was his opportunity to be, And after 2 beers, it was always like somebody flipped a switch. So, I thought that that was going to be the issue. That was going to be our hurdle. We'd been together for, gosh, at that point in time, I don't even, 14 years, something like that. So one day, I wake up, we're in our beautiful home. This is a few years into it. We had been up there. So we moved in 2006. This is in 2009. Everything looks great on the outside. Everything looks really, we've got a good life. We both have good jobs, beautiful home. Our daughters are doing well. I wake up, I go into the kitchen. We had a built-in workstation with our shared computer there. I walk in, I wiggle the mouse, I go over and I get my cup of coffee. Take my cup of coffee, go back over to the computer and I sit down and it opened up. And it was to Facebook Messenger, not mine. And it was my ex-husband communicating with a woman in Massachusetts that he knew from childhood. And the two things that really kind of, red flags, was, hey, I'm going to be a bachelor in a couple of weeks because my daughters and I were going down to Texas to see family. So that was a little alarming that he'd be telling this woman that. And the other thing he wanted to know was, can you still have an orgasm after your aneurysm that you just had? I mean, there you go. That would raise anybody's red flags, Hey, by the way, sorry you had an aneurysm, but can you, can you still get busy? So.
Did she answer?
That is a very good question. I freaked out. And I shut it down. I should have dug deep. I should have dug deeper, but I didn't. I did not do that. But I went to work, and I worked for DCYF at the time, and I went to work, and I had a case down in Keene, got back to the district office up in Claremont, and I printed out my first phone bill. Does anyone want to take a guess? If anybody knows, don't answer, like legitimately knows, how many phone calls on his phone line for 1 month? Give me a guess. Something.
Someone said 1,000 over here.
Someone said 1,000? Up.
2,000.
2,000. 1 month. So on a good day, my ex-husband would call me at least 20 times a day. I know, that's not a good day, but I thought it was a good day. I was used to that. So let's do the math on that one. He's calling me 20 times a day, times 30, there's 600. So who was he calling 1,400 times? So then began my wife sleuthing and trying to figure out what the heck was going on. That was a low phone bill, 2,000. And he had 2 phones. So I don't know, he had a state-issued phone, so. God. One of the people that he was communicating with quite regularly was a 17-year-old girl who was a part of our ski joring club and gymkhana, for horseback riding club. And we got into therapy, straight into couples therapy. What the heck is going on? And his excuse was, well, if you just spend more time with me. I work full time, he worked full time, we have children, I was doing as much as I possibly could, and we did a lot of stuff together, we really did. There was, it came to light that basically you couldn't swing a dead cat without somebody he was either stalking or sleeping with. He was sleeping with my next door neighbor. There were so many, I couldn't keep track. And I didn't really know about a lot of them until later on. We go into therapy, and that's when the thread of the tapestry that was made up with all of the red flags that I had ignored for 14 years, really started to unravel. And his behavior, the alcohol did not stop. It got worse and it got worse and it got worse. And we would be going down to therapy and are you gonna divorce me? Are you gonna divorce me? Are you gonna divorce me? I didn't know. I loved this person. And I felt like, what the hell? I didn't have any answers for him at all at that moment in time. Full bottle of Pepsi, I'm driving, whack! Or I'm driving down, we lived up on top of a mountain. The only way to get there was on the I don't know if anyone knows Whitney Brook Road here. It's a one-laner. And I'd be driving down and I wouldn't give him an answer he wanted, and he'd try to grab the steering wheel, or he would grab the steering wheel and try to get the keys out of the ignition. Every day was something different. But the most pervasive thing that would happen was the chasing at night. And he would drink, and he would wake up, and he would say, if you would just make love to me, you'd forgive me. I mean, where that is just like the craziest logic. I never really understood, but it was very aggressive, and it was every single night. And the less answers that I could give him, the more the violence. He never hit me. He's a state trooper. He's not going to hit me in the face, but he's going to grab me, and he's going to bruise me, and he's going to shove me, and he's going to push me up against walls, and he's going to force me to have sex. While we're in therapy, the therapist, after a month, or no, probably like 2 months, he couldn't stay hinged. He could not stay hinged. In front of the therapist, he got even crazier. So finally, the therapist says, I can't see you anymore. I'm breaking up with you. Ex-husband, you need medication, anger management, and substance abuse counseling. Once those things have happened, if your wife still wants to engage in this process, then we can bring it on back to the table. And we can think about doing this again. But until you heal yourself, I can't do anything. I had the amazing fortune of being able to continue to see this gentleman who was, dang, he was good. And he made me feel like I wasn't crazy, because I felt like I was crazy all the freaking time. Gaslighting, the gaslighting, oh no, that never happened, even though something just happened right in front of my face. Got so violent at the house, the drinking continued, heavier and heavier, and it would be, 6-pack of beer on the counter, and let's decide to clean the firearm right now. I think that's a good time to clean your gun, don't you think it is? And you're a fucking bitch. You are a bitch. If you would just forgive me, we could move on with this, and everything's gonna be, there was nothing that I could do. No, it was like trying to negotiate with a terrorist. There was nothing that I could say, nothing that I could do. And I knew I was in trouble. And then one night, I had been sleeping on the couch, my favorite flower couch in the blue room, for months and months and months. And I had fallen asleep in bed, and he woke me up. He had fallen asleep on the couch, and he woke me up. And, no, you're gonna have sex. No, I'm not. And before it got too violent, I got out of bed. And the chase began. And he's naked, chasing me around the house, screaming at me. I'd go in one room. He'd trap me in there. I'd get out. I'd go to another room. And I thought, well, I'm going to go down into the basement, because we had a walkout basement, and our daughter's suite was down there. And there's a futon down there. And I thought, I'm going to go down, and I'm going to sleep on that futon. He won't take me down there because he's not going to want to wake our children up. And You know I'm wrong on that. He follows me down, and I go back upstairs, and I go into the blue room. Blue room is my favorite room in the house, where my favorite flower couch is, and my favorite wing-back chair. So I sit down on the edge of the couch, and I said, I just can't do this anymore. We need to separate so we can figure out our own stuff. If there's going to be a chance for us to survive, that's what's going to have to happen. And so he's in the wing-back chair, and he's sitting back in the chair. And at this point, he put on he had this green robe. And the green robe was like that crushed kind of velvet thing. And it was old and it was crusty. Even when it was clean, it just looked like it fucking stunk. It just was gross. I hated it. Sorry, I swore. Shani, I need a refill. And so he had put this on. He hadn't tied it. He's sitting in my favorite wing-back chair. And when he first sat down, he was kind of pitched back. And I said, we need to separate. We're never going to make it if this is the route we have to keep going. And I remember he kind of leaned forward in the chair, doing the man spread. His robe falls open. Junk is hanging down. Gut, because he drank a lot of beer. And he always had, when he was anxious, he always did this thing with his mouth. And he leaned forward and he said, "You are never going to leave me. I am going to take your children. I'm going to take your money, your home, your friends, your family. I will leave you with absolutely nothing if you leave me." And I think at that moment, I realized that I was 100% unrecognizable to myself. I was a victim of domestic violence. I had no idea who I was. Thinking about, where we had come from. We had survived the death of our child. We had a beautiful home. We had all this stuff. Everything looked so perfect on the outside. And I kind of felt like, especially after Cray died, I kind of felt like I was invincible. Like I could get through anything. But what I didn't realize was that for, 14 years, I had been intentionally and systematically reduced to a victim of domestic violence. It was psychological warfare. It was telling me every day how fucking stupid I am and how everybody hated me and how everybody was afraid of me. The afraid thing was a big thing. He said, everybody's afraid of you. I'm like, what? It's just really interesting. But this is what he would do. He'd be on the phone with a friend, and I'd be like, "Oh, hey, dinner's ready." He'd be like, "Yeah, gotta get the phone." Susie's screaming at me, "Dinner's ready." The other person on the other end of the phone has no idea what really is happening. He's planting these seeds. So I think that a lot of people may be worried. They did think I was bad. Here's a fun example. Well, we'll get to that in just a minute. So I knew I was in trouble. What am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this? I was stripped down to bare studs. The framework of my house was completely gone. I didn't know who I was. I didn't recognize who I was. And I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I just had no idea. What am I going to do? So We go to our separate corners that night. Everything is kind of at a weird little truce. The chasing still continues. All this stuff happens. And I'm still thinking, what am I going to do? I don't know if I had this weird thing in my head thinking, oh my God, something's going to miraculously just get better. It didn't. So then I'm at work one day, again, DCYF, and I get a phone call, and it's his patrol partner. And she and I had developed a very subtle, quiet friendship for the year prior to that. What I didn't know when I first started being friends with her actually was that he stalked the shit out of her. She'd be at home and open up the curtains on her slider, and he'd be standing outside. I mean, he was such a freaking creeper, and there's some people in here I know that too. So she said, where are you? And I said, I'm at work. And I can remember in DCYF, I left my little cubby and I went out into the stairway, and that stair was like musty and it's concrete and it smells, and I'm sitting on there. The concrete stairs, they feel like they're wet, but they're really not. They're just cold and damp and gross. And she said, you have to leave. You have to take your daughters and you have to get out of the house now. I'm like, what? She said, well, he's unhinged. He can't stop telling people that he's going to hurt you and what he's going to do to you. And I'm thinking, shit, law enforcement. He's telling law enforcement. How smart is that? You know? Well, I'm like, well, I can't just not go home, because the girls were home at that point in time. So the next morning, I have to pretend everything is normal. I can't like, brr. And he had, I think that was on a Thursday that happened. On Monday of that, he was skiing and took a good beater, and his finger broken sideways, big old black eye. That's relevant later on. But he was skiing again that day, so he packed up his stuff. He went up to the mountain. I took the girls to school, and I went up to Wise up in Lebanon. And there was a caseworker there that I had worked on a DCYF case with, and I sat down and I said, all right, I'm in trouble. I really just want to file an ex parte for the girls so that they can be with me, we can go to our separate corners, and we can figure stuff out. And as I'm having this conversation with her, my phone starts blowing up. It starts blowing up. He can't find me. He's calling the district office. My friends are calling me, telling me, oh my God, he's calling. He's blowing up the phone, blowing it up, blowing it, blowing it up. And I'm thinking, oh God, he knows what's going on. In the meantime, the caseworker is like, you need a restraining order. His partner is on the phone with me, you need a restraining order, like a restraining order would stop him from doing anything, but it was what the thing to do was. So I'm like, okay, I'll do a restraining order. Well, his partner then, thinking she was doing the right thing, called their supervisor and said, hey, this is what's happening. Susie is filing a restraining order against ex-husband. Well, what do you think the supervisor did? Picked up the phone and called my ex-husband and said, hey, your wife's about to file a restraining order against you. You know, what a good thing to do with an abuser. So what he does is he comes off the mountain, blowing my phone. I think there was 40 or 50 phone calls that we had on my phone from that morning alone. And he went to my mother's house. Unbeknownst to me, for the previous 7 months since we had been in therapy, he had been grooming my mother, telling her, going over there every single day, telling her that I was mentally unstable, that I was doing drugs, that I was sleeping with people. I mean, to tell you. And what did she do? She believed him, because he was a genius at verbal jujitsu. He could talk anybody into anything. Anything. He could make you believe something that never happened, or not believe something that just happened right in front of your face. And you just walk away scratching your head like, what the fuck just happened? I know that happened, but he told me it didn't happen. So, he was over there, grooming her for months and months, every single day. So he goes from the mountain to her house, calls me from her phone. I'm thinking it's her. And I picked it up, and he said, "Game on. I'm taking you down." And he tried. He tried very, very hard. So they served him the restraining order. It did nothing at all. The next day, the chief of police came and got me, because I mean, all I had was the kids' backpacks and my work stuff. Came and got me. We went to the house. He had this big red Dodge Ram truck, Cummins turbo diesel. Cherry bomb glass pack mufflers. So it was really, really, really loud. And you could hear this thing from miles away. And I can remember, police chief brought me up to the house. I am beside myself. I haven't eaten, I haven't slept, I just can't stop crying. And we're in the kitchen, and what do we hear right outside the door? Right there in the driveway. There he is. And police chief's on the phone. "You have to leave, you have to leave." Nothing, 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 nothing. He stays, he stays, he stays. Finally, I get what I need, and the chief of police makes him back off, and they were gonna meet down at the police station. That same police chief ended up getting stalked by him as well. He would go to his house and sit outside and terrorize his girlfriend at nighttime when police chief wasn't there. And that was the thread. That was the terror. When I'm in the same house, I know when he's coming. I know what his patterns are. One of his patterns, with the firearms thing, cleaning the firearms, when he would get particularly drunk, what I would do is I would hide his service revolver and his handgun, and if it was a really bad night, I would go out and get the shotgun out of his cruiser and hide it. And then the trick was to get everything back where it needed to go before he woke up in the morning, because I didn't know if he was gonna wake up and if he was gonna flip out on me anymore. I didn't know. And I didn't know if he was just gonna freaking shoot me, because it sure is what it felt like. So the police chief calls me and says, "Susie, I need to meet you." It's his day off. We go and we meet. He walks me over to his car, and he opens up the passenger side door, and there's a gun. And he's like, I think you need to have this gun. He said, "Larry, I'm sorry, my ex-husband said I wouldn't say his name. He's gonna kill you. He is going to kill you. And then he's gonna go down in a blaze of glory, and we're gonna kill him. That's what's going to happen." I said, I really, really appreciate the sentiment, but here is a trained member of law enforcement, 25 years, and I'm gonna have a gun, and what's he gonna do? He's gonna just pluck it, and he's gonna shoot me. So that wasn't an option. Every day became a different episode of terror. Everywhere we went, he went there. Everywhere we went, if we're at home, if we didn't answer the phone, it was on speed dial, 40, 50 calls over and over and over again. If we did pick up the phone, and if the girls didn't want to talk to him, it was him. They would hang up on him, call the police. "I heard some domestic violence at my ex-wife's house," or blah, 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 blah. And then me and the girls would be sitting there watching Lilo and Stitch, eating popcorn on the couch, and there's a knock on the door. I get up, and I go, and I open the door. "Oh, hello, officer." "Yes, ma'am, we heard that there's, some sort of altercation happening here." Bring them on in. And I look, and there's my two daughters sitting on the couch with their popcorn like, "Hi, police officer, how are you?" That's what it was. That was our life. No matter what we did, he just terrorized us. He tried, he lived up to his promise. The day after the restraining order, he opens up a bank account, takes all of my money. So, okay, he accomplished that. Here's a funny little sidebar on that one. his next ex-wife, not his newest ex-wife, his next ex-wife and I, she stayed with him for a year. They were married for a year, but she was with him through the whole time that we were getting divorced. In 2010, when I am working for the state of New Hampshire, I'm at New Hampshire Hospital at that point in time. And I am working part-time at Sunapee, and I'm cleaning houses. I'm cleaning houses on whatever minute I had. I'm schlepping, and I do like cleaning houses, actually. I find it very therapeutic, so it wasn't such a bad thing, but it was great money. But here I am, I'm just trying to make sure that the girls can go to dance lessons and to gymnastics and to do all the things, but I had nothing. Because in the state of New Hampshire, if you pay 25 cents in child support, you're making a good faith effort. But he had no money. So here's the funny little kicker about that. Fast forward a few years, my lovely husband, who was not my husband at that time, and the next ex-wife, who did become a dear friend of mine, we're sitting by the fire, and of course we're shooting the shit about the ex. And she said, yeah, and that time that he got the $100,000, and I'm like, the $100,000? What? And then, what does my boyfriend say? Yeah, the $100,000 that he got when I hit him. What are you even talking about? In 2010, 4 years before I met, was it 2010?
Probably more winter of 11, 12.
Okay, 11, 12. Still, we're talking a solid 2 years before I even met this man. I have no idea who this person is at all. Rear ends my ex-husband and gets a $100,000 settlement while I'm schlepping trying to take care of my kids. That was just a sidebar of what a piece of shit he was. That's really nothing. Yeah. So it was just like a bump, wasn't it? No? So anyways, he did succeed in taking some things from me. He did. He stripped me down into an unrecognizable version of who I thought that I was. And that's the silver sprout in the shit right there, is that I had this opportunity I don't want to say reinvent myself, but I think become the person that I needed to be. For my children, I had nothing. Humility, having nothing, having everything, and then all of a sudden having nothing, but what's really important to you, my children, was a really sobering lesson. My mom took us in for a few months. One of my best friends let us live in one of his apartments. And that's where the silver sprouts, that's where the growth started to happen. That's where reinventing and creating a life from a place of sheer terror. It was terror for me and my daughters. We could be walking one night, walking at my mother's house. This was pretty quickly after I had left. And I'm walking and it's dark. And my big Anatolian shepherd, 120 pounds, big old gangly boy. It's a very quiet night. And I'm walking and I think I can hear it. I think I can hear that Cummins turbo diesel, big, stupid red truck. And it probably was a couple of miles away. But I could hear it coming up Route 11. And I'm thinking, that can't be. There's a restraining order. Like, really? Naive, I understand, but this must have been pretty soon after I had left. And I can remember it's getting louder and it's getting louder. And I'm starting to walk back towards my mother's house, and I look down, and I can see the headlights of the truck pulling from Route 11 coming down. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm screwed. I am screwed. So I start running, and my dog thinks I'm playing. So he's biting my arm as I'm going, and I'm like, oh my God, run faster, run faster. And there's this huge blooming forsythia bush in my mom's front yard. And just as he's approaching the front end of it, I'm at the tail end of it, and I just dive with the dog, pancake on the ground, thinking, God, just please, 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 make it that he didn't see me. But that was our life. That was absolutely our life. We were really lucky when we lived at Blodgett. One way. I mean, I understand. Anybody could drive in there, but it's a one-way loop when you go in. And everybody knows everybody else. And everybody knows when somebody's not supposed to be there. So that was a really beautiful thing. More importantly, we started to build, I can remember moving in, we had no furniture. We had a fold-up chair and a TV with antenna on it. That's how bad it was. We had nothing. Yard sales, Potter Place rummage sale, getting a bag of clothes, 25 cents a garment. That's what we lived in. I still have some of those clothes, actually. I really do. We had to rebuild absolutely everything. We had to readjust our sales. But we started making these little memories. Every day after the girls would come home from school, they had these little insulated bags. I'd pack our dinner, and we'd go down onto our own private oasis. It was just this magical place where the girls could forget that we were being stalked daily and that their father was a horrible, horrible human being. He was mean, he was nasty, he was crazy. He really lost his shizzle there. Eventually, what ended up happening is the next ex-wife left him. And here's a little karma thing. God moment. I'm at work one day, and my phone rings. Susie, your ex just got hit by a car. Where are you? I'm at work. I did not run him over. I swear to God, I did not run him over. He went to, I don't even know, someone hit him at work one day. It was pretty awesome. No lasting damage, but he worked it. It was actually so funny.
It was.
Oh gosh, it was so funny. Because he worked this, I have this major injury, I need to do this. But, you would see him at the liquor store. If you see him out, he's walking with a cane, like this. Yeah, but if you catch him at the liquor store, he popped out that door, whoop, I'm going in the liquor store, So he was not injured. He worked it hard. So ultimately what ended up happening, and really, we had to rebuild, and it was by creating safe, special times for me and the girls. Unfortunately, my daughter still had to go and see him. Didn't matter how much information, didn't matter DCYF being called by the school system. The judge sympathized with him. Ultimately, I got everything I wanted. I had the girls. That's what I wanted. Once the next ex-wife left, all of his attention went to her. And it gave us breathing room. And it really allowed us to stabilize. And bought a house because my stepfather was so kind and gracious. I couldn't take out a loan because he let the house go into foreclosure. And even though the court made him pay for it, I was linked to it. So he lent me the money. 3 years later to the day, I gave him the money back. And I was able to grow into a person that I didn't recognize before. I didn't need anybody. I needed the people that loved me, the people who showed up for me all the time, the people who supported me and listened to my stupid stories and my terror things day after day. And there was always oh God, this happened this week or this happened this week. But the silver sprouts that came from that time, I did feel loved, and I did feel valued. And I knew people weren't afraid of me, except for Ed, right there. I didn't know that. I let somebody tell me lies. And the fear it fed into the lies and made me believe that I was not worthy of anybody else's love but his, and that everybody hated me and everybody was scared of me, and that I would never have anything without this man in my life. And when I think back to the Blue Room today, let's talk about it. I have an amazing family. I have amazing friends. I feel so loved. My children are beyond amazing, and the bond that I have with them is, you can't beat it. You know, we all love our children, and we've all been through shit. But it made me into a different person, and it made me into the person that I am today, kind of a badass. I know how hard the loss of a relationship is, but when you have the domestic violence that is attached to it, and it reduces us to kind of a shell of who we thought we were going to be or that we wanted to be in our life, I promise you, it's just all bullshit. And you can make it through absolutely anything, and it might take absolutely everything that you've got, but you got it. You just have to have a true north. You got to know where you're going and what's important to you. And every single decision that you make will be based on those, whether it is your children, whether, you know, who knows what your own truth north is, but. So, chapter 1. I need a drink of water. Just 1 second. So chapter 1, everyone need a break? So we'll fast forward to chapter 1. You know, the big dust up on the divorce stuff, that was over probably in 2013, I think. And the one that just walked out, and my oldest daughter, Cameron, and I, you know, we had built a life out of, you know, like I said, it was chaos, terror, it was this, but the most important thing to me was that our home, behind our doors, was good and peaceful and grounded, surrounded by people that we loved. You know, that was really, really important. So each year, you know, things really started to get better, and, you know, we're pretty freaking stable. We did pretty good. That's not to say that there were not enormous scars. You know, and scars for me as a grown-up with a background in behavioral health and having tools, you know, knowing how to navigate those, it's a lot easier. But for my kids, the scars ran deep. There was the disappointment, there was the abuse, significant abuse, because all the anger that had been on me went to especially Cameron. Cameron, my firstborn guinea pig child. You guys know what a guinea pig child is? We learn. And Cameron, she was this magical, unicorn, amazing young lady, smart as a whip, determined, beautiful, charming. She could work a room like nobody's business. She just had something in her that was just so cool. Very difficult, very difficult. And determined, I'll say that again, determined. But she was just the goofiest thing ever. I mean, she was pretty freaking cool. And Cameron's biggest lesson to me as a mom was the art of letting go of, like, oh Lord, so many letting go things. For example, I'm trying to think of an example. I actually had a couple in my brain, and now they're, like, of course, going somewhere else. Cameron wanted to, from a very, very young age, she was like, I'm out of here. I want to leave. I want to go explore the world. I want to go, see what everything is about. I'm from a very, very little girl. So in high school, she decides, I'm going to graduate early. I'm getting out. She needed a geographical change. I understood that part of her, no question about that. So she graduated at 16 by the skin of her teeth. She did not graduate at 16 because she was super smart. She did it because she was really determined, and she just didn't want to be in that school anymore. So she graduates, and she goes down to college in Boston about a couple weeks after turning 17 years old. It's kind of scary to drop your kid off in Boston, Well, like her mother, she followed in my footsteps and got kicked out of Curry College. After a year, I got kicked out of University of Colorado. Just call a spade here. But I was skiing, she was partying. So she decided at that point in time that she wanted to go to Utah, Salt Lake City, because that's where everyone that she loved was. Her bestie, Shandog, was there. I had a choice. I could either be with her on the journey, or I could say, no, you're not going to Utah. You don't have a plan. You're not going to college. Burr, 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 burr. It wouldn't do any good. So I had to jump on the bandwagon with this one. So one July day, we pack up her Chevy Cruze, and the two of us, actually it was the 1st of July, drove out to Utah. I had her set up in a beautiful little apartment right by the Capitol in Salt Lake. And she could not wait to get rid of me. Oh my gosh, she could not wait. I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna spend this quality time together. And that was not on her agenda, because on July 4th, I was flying out the next day. She was like, yeah, Ma, I got parties to go to. You okay being alone tonight? And I'm like, whoa, I'm leaving my baby. So we said our goodbyes, and I went back to New Hampshire, and she began her life there. And interestingly enough, 6 years ago today, Lawson and I were out visiting her in Salt Lake. And when I got there, she sublet that beautiful little apartment, but she was in a very swanky apartment now, like swankier than I could have ever afforded. She had a roommate, so, okay, all right. And then we were going, I can't remember where we were going, but we went down to the parking lot, and I'm like, yeah, well, where's your car? And she's like, oh, well, this is my car, and it's a new Audi. Okay, so every single red flag in my mom brain is just on fire at this moment in time. I'm like, but we're heading out to Moab, and I didn't want to fight with my kid. I just wanted to enjoy my time with her. I knew I would find out eventually what was going on. So I had to let that go. I had to let that one go. So we had a great visit. It was a really lovely visit. So probably a few months later, I'm in bed at night, and I'm, scrolling on Facebook, as we all do, and something pops up on my daughter's wall. And it's an ad for a car wash. And this is not a car wash like this is a high school fundraiser or Girl Scout car wash. This is a car wash at a strip club. So all of a sudden, all of these little pieces click into place. And I'm like, shit, my daughter is a stripper. Here's a big let go. This is a big let go for a parent. I was consumed. My kid is a sex worker. You know, what parent, what do you do with that information? I tell you what you do with that information. You dig and you dig and you dig and you find out all the inner workings of what she's doing and how she's doing it. And I'm like, holy crap. You know, and I'm consumed with guilt and shame and horror and terrified that when I go to the grocery store, shit, I'm going to run into, you know, somebody, how's Cameron doing? Oh, you know, my kid is off at, you know, going to law school or, you know, trekking through the, you know, Himalayas or, you know, going and doing some magical thing. How's Cameron doing? Oh, well, you know, living her best life, being a stripper. How do you process that information? Cameron was a magical unicorn of a person. And for those people who knew Cameron, it's not a surprise that she was a stripper. It's not. A, she loved to dance. B, she loved to be naked. These are things. And then she had all these dad issues. You know, it was a trifecta of bad stuff that led her down that. My pain for her was knowing the ramifications of the psychological fallout that was going to happen when she decided she wasn't going to be a stripper anymore. Knowing how scarred and damaged that she was by her father. And knowing that what she was doing now, even though she was like, yeah, it's quick money, blah, 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 was just going to compound that pain. And she was just going to have to deal with more shit once she made that transition of getting out of that. So that was my let go. What my let go? My let go is I love my child unconditionally. And it's not my decision. I can't control what she's doing. I can't fight that battle. I just loved her. And I loved everything about her. And I knew why she was doing what she was doing. So, February 2020, anyone remember 2020 and what an absolute shit show our lives were? I mean, it was just awful. February of 2020, I'm working for New Hampshire Department of Corrections. I'm the Deputy Director of Professional Standards. And I go to work. And I go to work, I make my coffee. Coffee seems to be a theme for me. Bad things happen when I drink coffee. Maybe I should just give up coffee altogether, but I'm not going to do that. So I make my coffee and I go to my desk and I sit down and my phone rings. I don't recognize the phone number. And I answer it. And there's a hysterical woman on the other end of the line. And I'm sure I was not very kind, because it was my ex-husband's newest ex-wife. There's supposed to have been a couple since me. And she says, they just found Cameron's body in a hotel. What? And I cannot fucking stress this enough. The actual fuck. My beautiful baby is dead. How? How does this happen to a person? Not once, but twice. After every fucking thing that we survived, And all I could think is, how the fuck am I going to tell my one? The bond that my girls had, the three of us were so incredibly bonded after what we survived, but the two of them, I don't have a sister. I got 3 brothers. So I don't understand a sister bond, but I know that the bond that they had, which was survival, fucking survival. They had to survive when I wasn't there to protect them, because I couldn't, because the court wouldn't let me. And I'm just thinking to myself, how am I going to tell my beautiful child that her person is gone? All I could think of at that moment in time was, I gotta get home to my couch. How am I gonna get from here, where I am? I just need to be on my couch. I don't even know why. You know, the weirdest things go through your head. And I called my husband. Cameron's dead. I'm coming to your workplace, and we're gonna drive in tandem back up 89. And I called my mom, I called my dad, let them know. And I think that, you know, I sat on the couch waiting for Lawson to come home from school. I don't know what to even think, but honestly, that might have been the worst moment of my entire life, was having to tell my baby that her person was no longer with us. We had no answers. We knew nothing. We knew nothing. Fortunately, the day after, we had already had a trip to go see my dad in Manhattan, so we decided we would go ahead and do that anyways. Give us some space, a buffer, you know, so we're not looking at everything that was Cameron, our home. You know, we're like a 3-legged stool. You know, when you take away one and you just fall flat on your freaking ass, and that's where we were. We were flat on our freaking butts. Went down there. It's a good move because, you know, in New York City, you can walk around, you can cry your eyes out, and nobody freaking cares. So it felt good to be anonymous and knowing what we had to deal with. Planned her memorial. We had a great memorial service. All of her friends came from Utah. And it was just such a whirlwind of stuff that was happening at that point in time. You know, I wanted to honor her. I wanted us to have a beautiful experience in honoring who she was, the essence of who she was, that sassy, beautiful unicorn that she was. So we got over that. And then the dust started to settle a little bit. And then the questions really started to come out. What really happened? So when they did toxicology on her, they found fentanyl in her system. But it's not that simple, because here's the actual story. Cameron went out to Portland, Oregon with her roommate, who she lived with in Salt Lake City, and another one of their friends, the girlfriend of her roommate. The 3 of them traveled to Portland, Oregon to dance from Wednesday to Wednesday. The roommate was very jealous and very manipulative, very possessive of Cameron. Cameron was so compassionate, and she always just gave her the benefit of the doubt. It was always, oh, Court, oh, you know, okay, you know, we're not going to do anything, you know. And on Monday night, the 17th, Cameron said, all right, we're going to dance. We came here to dance. We came here to make money. Let's go do it. You know, let's go do it. The roommate didn't want to go. Cameron said, I'm going. I'm going to go. You know, they were at one club, and she had another friend, not from there, but from Portland, who she met up with, and they danced. All through the night on social media and through text messages, this roommate was Cameron's such a fucking bitch. Who does that? Da, da, da. I mean, really like blowing stuff up. Very, very, very caustic stuff. So Cameron dances, goes to this other girl's apartment. They hang out, they watch Cops, they talk philosophy. 7 o'clock in the morning, she gets an Uber and she goes back to the hotel where they are. The roommate lights into her straight out of the gate. So here's where it gets a little, it's not great for me, but Cameron is FaceTiming with her boyfriend. And roommate is yammering, and roommate says, and Cameron says, yeah, I gotta get off the phone so I can deal with roommate. Cameron tried to FaceTime the boyfriend about a half an hour later, and he had already fallen asleep, so he didn't answer because it's early in the morning. He was a bartender, he worked overnight. And that was it. That was the last communication ever from Cameron to anybody. I had the phone records. I had every piece of information. I knew exactly when it stopped. The roommate then, on that morning, did two things. She went to Walmart and bought herself a suitcase. Takes the suitcase back to the hotel, packs up all of Cameron's stuff, changes her flight, and flies back a day early, leaving Cameron's dead body in the hotel room. I got the crime scene photos from the police officers. They never talked to the roommate. They never asked a single question. They found a sex worker's body in a hotel room. Fucking worthless to them. Worthless. So they sent me the crime scene photos. I asked them, make sure you do not send me any photos of my child. You think they listened? No. The only benefit, I'm not gonna say benefit, the only something from that was there was one picture, and in the picture she looked like I had seen her a million times. She looked like a little burrito sleeping, curled up in bed on her side. But what struck me is that there was nothing in the room. This is where all the pieces just started clicking together. And around that same time, I got her suitcases back from the hotel. Empty. So that's when everything started clicking in my head, and I became obsessed. Police weren't helping me. My contacts at DOC, I had some friends who were working with the FBI. They tried to get answers out there, but at that time, those riots were starting out in Portland. They were so thin, they did not have time or the interest to try to figure out what had happened to my kid. They just didn't. So I just became completely consumed with trying to get to the answers. I hired a PI. She was amazing. I gave her all of the information that I have. Phone records, screenshots from Instagram, text messages, every piece of information. She came back to me a couple days later and said, I'm not going to take your money. You've already done all the work, and you know what happened. Short of the roommate coming forward and saying, yes, I think she slipped or something. That is my personal opinion. Think about it. You're in the middle of an argument. Someone's coming at you. Oh yeah, I think I want to get high right now, and I think I'm going to go ahead and I want to cop a buzz. That is not a logical thing to do. I think the roommate killed her. I'll never know, but I became completely consumed. On any given day, at any given moment, I felt like I was precariously perched with one foot here with my one, and the other foot somewhere else with my other two kids. I wasn't suicidal. I just didn't fucking care. I just wanted to be with all of them. I didn't know how to do that, and I couldn't do that. So began the process of trying to figure out, and here's where our letting go is. Short of the roommate confessing what happened, she went dark. She went MIA. I know she's been hospitalized a couple times since then. And she's going to have to live with that. You know, I can't do anything about that. But the anger and the rage, so easy to hold on to it. It's just so easy to hold on. But I had to make that decision to let it go, because it wasn't going to bring her back, wasn't going to get any questions answered at all. And it was a really easy way to avoid the pain that I just fucking needed to feel. And I needed to mobilize. I needed to figure a way to navigate through the pain and through the grief so I could be there for my child, because she's still here. Fucking letting go. So I learned to compartmentalize, waking up and feeling emotionally completely paralyzed with not just grief, anger, confusion, all these things that were happening prevented me from seeing the way through. And that's not to say, so my process is identifying what the emotions are that I'm having at any given moment in time, packaging them up into beautiful little boxes. Those emotions that were worthy of saving, worthy of processing. Anger, rage, the not knowing, those were not serving me and helping me to navigate through to where I could start to live again. Compartmentalizing those feelings and those emotions made these little cracks, where I could start to see the light again. But it also gave me the opportunity to, when the time was appropriate for me, when I had the room and the space to honor the emotions that I needed to feel, to honor her, I had to let go of a beautiful life that was right on the edge. I didn't mention that before. The last 2 visits that she had, something changed in her. I said before that she was difficult. That difficult, it went somewhere, which just shows me that there was growth on her part. There was a softness to her. There was a gratitude in her. She loved to be with me. She loved to be with Lawson. And she showed it, and she told us it all the time. That was the beautiful thing. On the other side of it, there is not I'm not going to say a day, but probably once a week, I have the mental image of the roommate duct taping her to a chair and beating the living fuck out of her. I think that. But then I think that's not the helpful thought. That's not helping me at all. It really doesn't help me. And I do believe that she has to live with it. She has the knowledge. She knows exactly. This other girl who had left the day earlier, she knows what happened to. They're never going to tell me. And I have to be at peace with that. I don't have a choice. Because if I choose to go another route, it does nothing to improve the quality of my life or honor the life of my daughter. Because I know my daughter doesn't want me to be in pain. I know my daughter wants me to be living and to be riding and to be with my one, going to the gym, tearing it up, just being the best mom that I can be. You know, that's what she would have wanted. So the true north for me, it is survival in this situation. I want to thrive through it. I want to help other people recognize that there is lightness. And you know, your story might be much more dramatic than that. It might be way less dramatic than that. But everybody in this room has what it takes to get through it. Acknowledging what your superpower is. If you don't know what it is, figure it out. What are you awesome at? What do you feel good about yourself? What do you want to give back to the world from the things that you've learned? And I didn't mention this at the beginning, but it's something that it resonates with me every single day. You know, we have these events in our life. Are we going to allow them to define us moving forward for the rest of our life? I don't want people to know me as, you know, dead Cameron's mom, dead Cray's mom. I want to be a mom. I want to be an awesome mom. I want to be known as being an awesome mom to them and to continue being an awesome mom to Lawson because she needs me. Shaping versus defining. Allowing growth to happen through the trauma that we experience, whatever it might be. Not settling for allowing things that are happening in our life to just happen to us. Fight back, man. Fight back. Because there's so much beauty in this world. I just went out to Las Vegas this week. I've been in Vegas all week. You know, and I decided, I had a conference that I had to go to, and I was there for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for that, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna rent a bike. It wasn't my bike. And I woke up that morning, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm in Las Vegas, and I rented a motorcycle that's not my motorcycle, and my spirit animal, my husband, is not with me to just give me some security, and I'm, you know, gonna go, and I almost didn't do it because I was scared. Why? I don't know. I ride my motorcycle all the time. I was just scared of getting out of my comfort zone, and it was the most beautiful ride I've ever been on in my entire life. And I love life, and I love my beautiful children, whether they're here with me or they're not. I love my friends, my family. You know, you think back to that scorecard. Let's think back to the Blue Room, and let's look at the scorecard right now. Beautiful family. I got everything. What does my ex-husband have? He's got 5 restraining orders, put 1 wife in the hospital. He's had 2 ex-wives since me. He lost his children. He had every opportunity to thrive through that situation, and he did nothing but lose absolutely everything. So I think I won on that one for sure. But I hope that any nugget of what I said resonates. I really do. I think that survival versus surthrival, we always have a choice. And once we learn how to surthrive, surthrival, you know, any situation is easy. You get through it. Looking for the sprouts in the situations. I mean, that's a thing. Because not everything is a dark thundercloud with a silver lining around it. Sometimes it's just a desperately sad, horrible, uncomfortable situation. But there's always something more positive at the other side. I swear to God. I thank you because you all are my sprouts. You are my sprouts. You are my chapter beginning. This is my prequel. This is a new life that I have where I know my voice, I know my story, and I know how much better it can be. And I know everybody in here has a superpower, whether they know it or not. You just got to tap into it. And I thank you for listening. Namaste.